The Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk has disputed reports from our Queensland editor Peter Gleeson that ADF troops had been left stranded in Dubai as quarantine exemption negotiations were stalled. Well, Peter Gleeson, who broke the story last night on Paul Murray Live, he joins me now. Gleeson, talk us through this. I tell you what, it doesn't sound much chop and seems to be very much in line with what we've been talking about for days now, a lack of consistency.
Lack of consistency, breathtaking hypocrisy. Yes, good afternoon, Kieran. Look, they've certainly got their knickers in a knot, but that's exactly what happens when you find that a government is exposed for their incompetency, their lack of compassion and empathy. I'll take you through this. We received an email from a concerned mother of an ADF officer in Dubai complaining about the conditions that they were being subjected to and basically saying, how is it that you can have a plane load full of wives and girlfriends of NRL players come to Queensland, and yet here we have an application that's before Queensland Health from the ADF to bring the troops back within their own quarantine bubble, and it has not been actioned. Now, we went to the government last night to get the facts, and they admitted that they hadn't actioned that particular request. Why the ADF even has to provide a request to Queensland Health is beyond me. But then, of course, they've started today. They've lost the narrative. They've lost, the debate around whether, in fact, this particular story is right or wrong. And it is right, Kieran. It's come from the highest of sources within the federal government. And now they're trying to blame and shoot the messenger. And let me just say this about today's shenanigans involving Health Minister Yvette Dath, who, of course, got the wrong number when she tried to ring Peter Dutton. Queensland Health is a big, bloated bureaucracy, and it runs the show. The politicians have lost the sheds there. They don't have any conception of what those guys get up to. And they make appalling decisions, Kieran, like denying a 3-year-old boy the opportunity for 7 weeks to see his mum and dad. A 7-year-old girl, 9 weeks, the opportunity to see their mum and dad. We saw those appalling images at the Queensland border, Tweed Heads, Coolangatta at the weekend, where we had people having to hug each other over barricades because of these draconian conditions. And I think when it's exposed that they've made a that they've made a blunder, and when they're stopping our diggers from coming back under the circumstances in which NRL wives and girlfriends have been able to come to Queensland, that's when they get their knickers in a knot. And I would probably be the same. When you're exposed as incompetent, when you're exposed as heartless, when you're exposed as lacking in compassion, of course you're going to blame the messenger. But I can tell you now, Kieran, I've been doing this for 40 years. That story is 100% correct.
I think we've got a comment from Anastasia Palaszczuk. Can we have a listen to that?
It is extremely disappointing that, Peter Gleeson, who wrote that article today, and I have a lot of respect for Peter Gleeson, but unfortunately, he gave the Health Minister, my understanding is 5 or 10 minutes to respond to that request before it went online, and the facts were incorrect. So I please ask people to give the government some time to respond.
So, and a fair bit of this goes to, and you touched on it in that first response, Peter, that the Health Minister in Queensland had the wrong number for the person she was trying to contact in the federal government.
And that certainly doesn't inspire confidence when you've got the most senior health official in the state trying to ring the Defence Minister with the wrong number. Look, can I just address that issue around providing a response from Queensland Health to my concerns, or certainly my questions? The Queensland government, the Palaszczuk government, are renowned for their ability to spin stories. And Kieran, you've been around the Canberra Parliamentary Press Gallery for a long time. You've seen the best in action. These guys are world class at spinning their way out of stories, and whatever they say is generally wrong. Sometimes they admit it. In fact, she actually did come out and say, we are trying to work with the ADF to get this sorted. The problem was, we had the mother of a particular ADF officer who had experienced firsthand from her child the problems that were going on in Dubai in trying to get back. These guys had been to Afghanistan. They'd repatriated a number of, many refugees. They'd endured incredibly horrendous conditions. They put their lives on the line. And what she was saying was, how come the special treatment should apply to the wives and girlfriends of NRL players when our diggers, our Defence Force people, the people who defend our country, cannot get back in an appropriate manner? And I think it's a legitimate question. And the reason we went to them so late, Kieran, was because I knew instinctively that as soon as we put those questions to the government, they would say, oh, no, it's all sorted, we've ticked it off, and they're coming back. The great thing about today, you know what, Kieran, is that we are going to see these ADF personnel, 40 Queensland soldiers, back pretty quickly. Who knows how long they would have been there lying on that gym floor in Dubai with Queensland Health having their futures at their disposal.
So these reports today that there was either a rejection or no communication is completely false. I think it's very mischievous. I don't believe they're coming from the ADF. It is distressing. It's distressing that these false claims have been put out there. It's distressing for the ADF. It's distressing for their families, and it's distressing for health and the government to see these reports that are completely inaccurate.
So just to try and clarify what Yvette Darth is saying, Peter, because is she denying the fact that the ADF had to seek exemptions in the first place? Because to me, that very starting point is hard to fathom, that the ADF have gone over to Kabul, one of the most dangerous places on earth, if not the worst, in terms of that recent calamity. Is she denying that they actually had to seek exemptions? What's the denial that she's issuing there? Because to have to seek an exemption in the first place is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, yeah. No, I don't know what her denial. Her denial is that the story's wrong. I mean, which is the sort of standard response from cabinet ministers in Queensland. She talks about, people being distressed, ADF people being distressed. You know what, Kieran? You know the people who are really distressed about this? It's the mums and dads of the soldiers who are stranded in Dubai right now, who were so desperate, so angry, that they wrote to the media and said, look, can you guys help us out here because we can't get our kids back. We want them back now. And we see breathtaking hypocrisy from the Palaszczuk government by allowing, NRL footy players' wives to come in, and we can't get our diggers back. That's the distressing part of this story. And as I said at the start of this interview, Kieran, the reason that they're so angry is because they've been exposed for their incompetency. They've been exposed on the basis that they've allowed the diggers in Kabul and, of course, Dubai to basically sit there and wallow while others are allowed into Queensland. And it's born out of desperation. The same thing happened with those other cases with the little 3-year-old Memphis and the 7-year-old girl. Until it finishes up on the front page of the newspaper, Queensland Health don't care, Kieran.